Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, but this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. Sometimes when I'm reasoning about us, I know you got me, it's so effortless. Back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, but this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the FPV News with me and ItsBlunty. How you doing, Blunty?
Good, Joshua. How's it going today?
I'm really good. I'm good. I'm excited to be here with you to go over the FPV news. You ever think about branching out into any other kind of news? You know?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, it would be video game news if I did it.
That could be fun. We figured that out. Yeah? Just Elden Ring all the time?
No.
Would we add that to our current, like it would be FPV / video game news?
No, I don't think the crossover is there. I think
I've had a lot of success before when I do video game streams on my channel. You know, people love it, especially when no one complains about how I should be doing. Why aren't you answering questions? If you went to Starbucks and they served you a hamburger, you'd be annoyed too. So I guess it makes sense. You know, what's his name? Branched out. He's rebranded as like VR and stuff. Well, not RC Model Reviews, isn't it? Is that who it is?
Where?
No, that's Bruce. Who's the frickin' guy? The guy who loves everything. No, that's a stereotype. I'm sorry. He rebranded. Oh, the chat's gonna know who he is. Why can't you? Drone Camps RC. He just rebranded. Look at this. This is news. I mean, we didn't put this in the news, but Drone Camps are VR, drones, FPV, crypto, tech, meta. He's branching out. We could branch out. We could do video games, right? Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I don't know how those analytics look, but if there's one thing I know about more than anything else, it's probably video games.
Really? Yeah. No. Well, I mean, It's a shame they got rid of the ability to see this past. You used to be able to see this for the lifetime of the channel, but YouTube took it away, suckers. Oh, anyway, that's not today though. Today is not the day we branch out into video games, crypto, meta, etc. I don't feel like I'm going to branch out into crypto. Today we're focusing on FPV news.
Would that be an NFTs? Yeah.
I hear NFTs are dead now. That Twitter NFT that sold for $27 gajillion went up for auction, and they offered him like $350. And as far as you know, that means NFTs. That's it. They put, and then and now they.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it.
Oh yeah, well, you know
like
everything you
wordplay.
need to know. All right, guys, we are going to do the FPV news, and we are going to start right now. Thank you guys for being here in the stream. Thank you guys. Anybody who leaves a super chat, we'll get you at the end. And thanks, as always, to the patrons in the Discord server. Always going to shout them out. He gave away a drone NFT. I like. What does that even mean? Can I have the drone and you keep the NFT? Okay. Anyway, I shouldn't say anything. I'm trying to be positive. Oh, sorry, wrong story. I'm being positive. I don't want to. The one time I said something vaguely reminiscent of throwing shade at Justin.
Yeah.
And people really were like, "Hey, you know he has kids." I was like, "What does that have to do with it?" So I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna keep it nice. I wish him the best. I wish him success with VR and crypto and his girlfriend. I could put you in the. You know, he put his girlfriend in the banner. Could be you and me in the banner.
We could do one of those back-to-back things. Yeah.
We would have to be. I would have to go to Denver, really, or we'd have to have a really good Photoshop or something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's begin the news. We got some great stories tonight. We're gonna start. You decided we're gonna start with plugs. We're gonna do plugs first.
Yes, because
Risky.
I'm tired of hearing people ask me what the email is to send news to the show. And they say, "Hey, I've never heard of the email. What is this email about? And how do I get news to the show? And I messaged you and you didn't list it." So if you want to send in news to the show,
it's right here. It's right
there.
here.
It's right over there.
Here, the whole show.
It's news at fpvknowitall.com. So if you want to submit news, if you want to let us know something, then send it on over to news at fpvknowitall.com.
Okay, great.
And we also wanted to let you know, that we both have a website you can visit if you wanted to check it out. So we've got the fpvknowitall.com, where you've got your ultimate shopping list where people can find out what they need to buy.
I really liked your read. I liked your read on that. That was a good read.
Yeah, and then I've got ItsBlunty.com, where I've got a troubleshooting service, my Patreon, and other handy links that I have that you might want to get. So if you need some one-on-one help and you want to pay a little extra for some premium support, then I've got that for you. So thanks you so much. Now let's get...
I love that graphic. That's all. I wanted more.
Fair enough.
Okay. I see some questions being asked in the stream about drones not being able to whatever. This is a news stream. We don't do Q&A here per se, although I am reading your comments. As you can see, you're welcome to email me. I have a piece of news about that. I'll stick it in here even though it's not official. I cut off Facebook today. I'm not saying like I quit Facebook entirely. I feel like I'm not. But what I did was I cut off Facebook messaging. Facebook messaging and Instagram messaging are a complete shit show. It is extremely difficult to keep up with the messages, to figure out who you're talking to.
It doesn't sync right, too. I have constantly problems where it's like, Instagram got a message, and I've seen a notification for 2 weeks, and I don't understand why I can't see it. And then it won't clear, and then it's in some other fault. I have the same exact experience. I'm sure it's even worse with a million people.
And Facebook Business Messenger, Facebook Business, if you have a business page, by the way, if you have a business page, it's a completely different interface than if you have a personal page.
Meta Business Suite. Yeah.
And like you ever seen the thing where it sends the message like, "Can you tell me more about yourself?" But you didn't type that. It just randomly shows up. And like people will write me and they'll be like, "Well, it's so nice of you to ask, Bardwell. I am a school teacher. I'm 37 years old." And I'm like, I didn't type I'm happy to connect with you, but I didn't type that. And suffice it to say, I don't think a messenger should be sending messages that I didn't type.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm switching to email. I put an autoresponder on my Facebook Messenger that says, please email me. And I've resisted doing that forever because I want to connect with you. I mean, like, kids these days don't even have email. They're all on Instagram and whatever, WhatsApp and Snapchat. And but I just can't do it. So I said, F you, I'm going to email. So there you go.
Fair enough.
All right. That's a little news. But the actual news. We're going to start with PSA, public service announcements. We have one PSA this week that you want to know about in case it affects you. What is it, Blunty?
Yeah, so there were some counterfeit flash chips found on some boards, and we wanted to let people know about it, and then maybe kind of give a shout out to users and manufacturers to let them know, hey, keep an eye out for this stuff. The HolyBro Kakute H7 Mini FC, in some cases, had what turns out to be a different 32 megabyte flash instead of 128 megabyte flash, and it was causing the flash not to work because it wasn't supported by Betaflight. Steve Evans found this and was able to knock it out. And if you go up to that top one and you click on the link there, the fixes, and click over, if you scroll down in that, HolyBro actually made a comment at the very bottom there. Just wanted to make sure we noticed that. So they said, Vince with HolyBro here. After his first production cycle, we found that there were a small percentage of the flash on the H7 Mini as 32s, marked as 128. So we immediately checked all our inventory and reworked at that time, but it looks like some made it out. So basically, they did find these, but some of them slipped out and were able to get out to customers. So
okay,
just be aware.
So the takeaway is, number one, if you have one of these boards with this flash chip, then your your black box flash logging just doesn't work, but otherwise the flight controller is fine.
Yeah, and 4.3 RC6. If you flash 4.3 RC6, your flash will work.
But you only have a 32 megabit instead of
correct instead of the
128 megabit.
Yep.
Which 128 is already pretty small.
Yeah, and the chip is actually labeled physically wrong.
Okay.
So it's like basically a counterfeit flash chip.
And so as far as we can tell, HolyBro thought they were purchasing legitimate chips and was sold counterfeit chips.
Yeah, I mean, we basically know for sure that they're not silk screening. They're not printing chips. So they received chips with labels on them. And then some of them they tested and caught, but unfortunately some of them were able to make it out and do this. So that means
I'll get to that in a second.
That means that anybody buying flash chips, though, from any of these manufacturers, or anybody getting, products made by a OEM, needs to be double checking this stuff and making sure that, they have the right devices before they're getting out off the line.
And these days, I don't blame any manufacturer for trying to get the things they need at a reasonable price, even if it means going to sources that might 3 years ago have been considered questionable. Like these days, to buy an official chip from an official source that you 100% know is what it says it is, you might pay 3 to 5 times as much as you would have just a year or 2 years ago. And so if, HolyBro probably was just trying to keep the price of the flight controllers at a reasonable level and keep their profits at a manageable level. They bought from some gray market. I mean, I'm speculating here. They bought from some gray market source or some maybe less than reputable source, and they ended up with some counterfeit chips. But I do want to say that every time something like this has happened in the past, almost every time, the manufacturer says, like I'm thinking of the Gep RC. Gep RC had those, love you Gep RC. Gep RC Mark V, fantastic, you're amazing. Way back when in the past, Gep RC had that issue with the stacking pins between the ESC and the flight controller. And I was like, this is a big deal, no one should buy this. And they said, it was just some pre-release boards, just a few of them, just like 30 of, they gave me a number, which was a big mistake. Just like 30 of them went out to pre-release reviewers and testers. Don't worry, the production board doesn't have this problem. We've fixed it. And then I was getting emails 6 months or a year later that I was like, when did you buy it? And it was like, so they always say, it was just a few and we caught them, but a few slipped out. I don't know how many actually slipped out. I'm not sure I believe that, but hopefully they've identified it. And if you have that problem, now you know, be on Betaflight 4.3 RC6 and it'll fix the issue.
Yep. A couple people, Dwayne in the chat asked were they counterfeit or the wrong size. No, they were actually counterfeit. They're labeled as a 128. They're physically showing as the wrong chip. And some of them out of the batches were correct, and some of them were not. They were 32s.
So they were mixed in with legit ones.
Yeah, as Dominic Clifton says, doesn't say much about the QA process that they didn't find or still ship them. I do agree with that. You know, when you have a new batch of chips that you're laying on a board, like part of the process should be checking out of that batch and then pulling things that come from that batch.
Let me be contrarian because it's fun, and I like to disagree with Dominic Clifton sometimes, even though he's usually right. Like, if they're telling the truth that the counterfeit chips were mixed in with legit chips, and if we assume that they have a QA process, which absolutely probably isn't as good as Dominic Clifton's QA. I would guess that Dominic QAs every single board he ships.
Sure.
But most manufacturers would pull a representative sample. They would QA, 5% or something. It's possible that if the number of counterfeit chips was low, it slipped through. Now, I would guess that Holy Bro doesn't, they just manufacture and ship, and they don't QA any of them. That's just what I would speculate. But if some slipped through, I wouldn't think it was like inherently bad, depending on how many there were.
Yeah, we don't know numbers. We know that, a couple people have them. We saw an issue report, and then Steve also had one. So,
all right.
If you had this issue, if your flash doesn't work or you got some weirdness going on, know that it's fixed in RC6 and it's smaller than expected. And if you're a manufacturer out there, or if you're a user who has this problem on something else, know that this could be an issue moving forward. And especially with the shortages, I don't think it's the last time we'll see.
Well, this is not the last time, because we saw the exact same type of thing with the counterfeit MCUs on the ESCs that didn't have the temperature sensing. This was the same kind of issue.
That was not a counterfeit, though. They knew they were putting those clone MCUs on those boards.
Oh, it was clone, not counterfeit.
Yeah. So they were using an off-brand, like, clone MCU, and they were choosing those parts. So those were labeled as clones. However, these were labeled as the wrong thing. They purchased the thing, knowingly, and then it was wrong. So
okay. One question that popped up in the Discord, Great Southern FPV wants to know if you have the, Dominic Clifton could probably weigh in, but I think I know the answer. If you have like a hot air rework station and you buy the correct flash chip and desolder the other one and drop this one in, I'm 99% sure it'll just be a drop-in replacement, because Betaflight supports the chip.
Yeah, I would.
It auto detects the driver, and it's just an SPI interface.
I was gonna say, I think the leg count is the same and everything. So.
Well, it must be the same. Otherwise, surely Holy Bro would have noticed.
Yeah.
It has to be a drop-in replacement. So if that's you, like the two of you out there who are going to do that, and who own a Holy Bro flight controller, you could drop it in if you wanted to. All right. Good discussion there. Not just a PSA for people who own this specific flight controller, but a heads up, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
This is only going to become more common in the future. Get used to it, folks. We've peaked. We peaked. There's a theory out there that we peaked around the time that the Matrix came out. That was the peak of sort of human civilization, and it's all going to be downhill from the 90s, the late 90s.
Well, I hope that's right.
All right. Next up.
In positive news, HDZero has recommitted. We say recommitted because they did this a long time ago on RC groups, and we talked about it back then, but we now got a public recommitment officially from the new HDZero company and crawled directly to mostly open source. I say mostly because the ASIC design will still be closed, but everything else about the system is going to be open. The software and hardware designs needed to create and support HDZero Digital are intended to be open sourced. And he says basically they're going to get the goggle software and the goggle hardware done, completed, and sent out. And then once that's done, their goal is to develop an open source community and open source the software and hardware designs. So that's pretty cool.
That is very cool. That's very cool. I don't in any way begrudge him keeping the ASIC proprietary. That's his bread and butter. And that's where he will make his entire career, selling those. Yeah. He has said from the beginning that he wants to do like the rich wave chip in the analog VTXs. People may not know this. I didn't know this until someone was like, hey, there's a parallel here. There's a chip in basically every analog video transmitter and 5.8 gigahertz video receiver. It's made by a company called Richwave, and it is proprietary, and they just sell it and license it to anybody or something. And so Carl just wants HDZero to be the rich wave of digital FPV. But in order to do that, he has to get reference designs out there and make it possible for literally anyone to build hardware. All they have to do is buy his chip. And that seems to be his goal.
So I'll say one thing I would like to see from HDZero, and honestly from Divimath. The one thing I would like to see is just a public commitment to continue producing chips for maybe X amount of time, or to show that there's X amount of resources behind it. Because the one concern that I've seen that I do believe there is some basis in is that we're working off a closed source ASIC. So while there is some hardware out there, we got fairly small numbers. Madstech looked, and it's probably around 5,000 VRXs he was able to find, something like that after some official information he got. If we think about it like that, the concern is just that, hey, in a year, if Divimath kind of craps out, maybe they don't sell enough, or they want to shift to new silicon or something, and they stop producing these, there won't be any more, and then we'll kind of have a dead system like we could think about DJI doing. And so the hope is that at least there is some, I don't know, it would just be cool to see some commitment. Obviously, you don't have to stick to that, but just to know that, like, hey, we're doing all this other stuff, or hey, we have all this other business, or hey, this is this percentage, or something like that, just to give us some reassurance. But otherwise, I think this is a really great move. There's a lot of hardware already out there, and there will be a lot of hardware being sold. We've got the new VRX, we've got a new integrated goggle that's going to be coming, and all that will be based on the same, these ASICs, so that we'll now have access to the software from. And if we compare to, like, we think about the margarine route that we've seen on DJI, they have access to the core OS of the goggle, but then there's the RTOS, which is the real-time operating system that lives and controls the ASIC. And so that's flashed at the factory, and all that controls a lot of the parameters for the ASIC. And if we have full access to that now through Divimath open source, it's a lot larger of a full access to the system. So it's super promising, and hopefully we see this fairly soon and everything play out as it's expected. So.
Yeah. Certainly, like, I think of the ExpressLRS ecosystem as a case where we have open source hardware and software, which would be the case, except for the ASIC, would be the case for HDZero. And we have reference designs put out there by experts who know the system inside and out, and manufacturers make third-party hardware in partnership with the with HDZero or the ExpressLRS devs, as it were. And you have sort of the best of both worlds. I think that would be an excellent model. The fact that HDZero would be a single source for the ASIC is a difference between ExpressLRS, because you've got Semtech makes the chip for the ExpressLRS receivers. Well, that's a little, they're a gigantic company. They're not going anywhere, probably. So having a single source is a different thing. I also think I've said on the live stream that for this to really be successful, there needs to be the kind of qualities that attract open source developers and contributors. If the community and the developers the manufacturers feel like this is a case where they have open sourced it kind of in name only, but they still sort of own it, it's going to be a different story, and it's not going to attract the kind of critical mass that a project like ExpressLRS or EdgeTX does, where people look at the difference between EdgeTX and OpenTX. OpenTX is open source in every way, but it doesn't have the same level of community involvement. I mean, maybe we would look at the GitHub repo and see that I'm wrong. It feels like it's, it's mostly sort of run by FreeSky to me. Whereas EdgeTX is really out there and really active.
Well, I think part of that too is the question of, like, I don't know. I think we definitely will have a world where we could see an EdgeTX version of OpenTX compared to, like, whatever the main HDZero repo is. If there's like some branch that's like Express HD or whatever we end up getting, right? I don't think that's that crazy. So, and Dominic Clifton mentions the word, I guess the phrase we should probably use, which is lifecycle duration. He says it's quite typical for IC manufacturers to offer lifecycle duration. So, yeah, if there is a lifecycle duration, then maybe Divimath could provide us for the chipset. I think that would be good for manufacturers to get an understanding. And hopefully they'll do that as they release the open source and as they're discussing with manufacturers and showing these designs. So.
It really seems like there's an appetite for this system, though. And I don't know why we don't see more Foxeer, Runcam, Caddx releasing products for it. I mean, Foxeer is going to be the first to release a third-party VTX. However, I can't help but notice it basically looks I mean, I haven't held them side by side, but it really just looks like an HDZero VTX. So I'm not sure how much they actually contributed. Whereas if you look at analog VTX, they all differ in many, many ways in their capabilities and their design. If it's just Foxeer making the same VTX that HDZero did, I'm not sure how much is being contributed, although it still would be a positive move.
Yeah, there at least was some, I'm going to guess there was at least some either learning from the Race V2 that HDZero did, or some input Foxeer had based on VTX design. Because when you compare like cap locations and resistors and stuff like that, there are quite a few changes on that Race V2. The layout is similar, but a lot of the other placement of parts is different. So I wonder how much input they had on that and how much change that'll be.
Yeah, well, we shall see. Carl has said that he is not good at designing VTXs, and he wants someone else who knows what they're doing to do it for him.
You know, they don't have the hardware experience. You know, they're getting it from doing this, but they don't want to do that. So
yeah. We got one more comment here from Aaron Roseberry, who says, so Divimath started making hardware and pushed Fatshark out, and now realizes it's really hard, and that's why Fatshark was taking so long to release the more powerful VTX. I'm not sure there's any part of that I actually agree with, respectfully, Aaron. Where do you want to start with that?
I think what happened was, I don't know, the whole time, since RC groups, you know, and we've shown these comments, the goal has always been HDZero will make hardware because somebody needs to make hardware. And if Fatshark's not going to make the hardware, we're going to make the hardware because someone needs to make it as a platform to prove that it needs to be there, basically. You know, we need somebody to put these in hands, and then also to prove that these should be in hands, and that in the future, when we want to get these manufacturers on this open source train and building parts for this stuff, there's a reason to. And so I think that's why we're where we're at, and that's why we're seeing the progression we're at. You know, they've lined us up with some VTX designs, and we've got a new VRX from them. We're going to have a specific goggle from them, and then that will pass on to this open source ecosystem, hopefully. To me, it makes perfect sense if you're trying to sell ASICs, that you're going to do as little of this hardware work as possible, and you're going to try Fatshark first and see if Fatshark can handle it. And when Fatshark doesn't roll with the ball, you've got to pick it up.
I think I don't think that either you or I have any information that would let us judge whether Fatshark pushed Divimath out, or HDZero, or whether Divimath pushed Fatshark out. I'm sure that, like any business disagreement or personal disagreement, there's many different angles you could see that from.
I can tell you that my understanding is that Fatshark decided to do the fire sale in the VRX. So to me, that is an indicator, right?
What does that indicate?
Like, Fatshark was done with the system and they wanted out. Like,
interesting,
right? Because
it wasn't moving. It wasn't moving fast enough.
Correct. Yeah, it wasn't moving fast enough, or they just didn't think it was a viable product, and they fire saled the last 1,500 of them, or whatever that comment said, right? On Madstech's page.
Interesting.
So, to me, like, if you look at how that worked, like, you know, it wasn't HDZero cutting all the costs for those VRXs. And if that's the case, then the only reason Fatshark would do that is because they're like, all right, we're done. This isn't working. We're out.
Well, it did work out that way. They fire saled those VTs. And the story was that it was not a fire sale and they were not getting out. This was what we were told. And of course, you have to take those things at their word unless there's evidence otherwise. The story was that they was just trying to, you know, build the user base. And then Fatshark was like, you know what, actually forget about it.
I was going to say, clearly when you fire sale them for way cheap and then you don't do another run, there is an indication of like, hey, there wasn't a point in this, right? Or there was, but you just want to get rid of it.
I mean, I do think that HDZero has done an admirable job of getting hardware out there, especially given that it's not their area of expertise. And if you told me, like, my read on it was that Fatshark was not moving fast enough for HDZero, that Carl wants to move fast, and Fatshark is very conservative and doesn't want to move fast. And, like, that to me is consistent with what I know about those two people. So, anyway, we get that good? Is that...
Yeah.
Enough about that. Good luck, HDZero. Go open source, manufacturers, start working on it. I got 90,000 views on my HDZero freestyle video, which it's big numbers for my channel. And considering that there are approximately 2,000 to 5,000 VRXs sold worldwide, to have 90,000 views tells you how interested people are in this system. So, All right,
Yeah.
well, that's 2 news items, and we're half hour into the stream. Let's see how the rest of the stream goes, Blunty. We're making a lot of good content. EdgeTX 2.7 is here, and according to the commenters on my live stream, I think it's bad because I haven't done a release video yet. So, but thank goodness we have the news.
Yes. Yeah, we just want to let you guys know that there is a new EdgeTX 2.7. They do a release every 3 months, and no matter how it works out, they're going to get it out for you. They like to hit those time frames as well as they can. And so 11 days ago, we got 2.7 in a final release. Some main things are model level ADC settings. So normally you have to go to the hardware menu, set your ADC, but hey, maybe you use servos and you feel like you need to set it at the model level. Now you can do that on each model. Immersion RC Ghost has a 12-bit mode that's now supported in EdgeTX. There's support for serial pass-through with a mod for the Jumper T Pro. And so some various bug fixes, changes, sensor changes, all kinds of different various things. The Radiomaster Zorro can use serial nano modules, which for some reason it could not for a while.
Right, because FreeSky is bad. FreeSky is weird. Yeah, those FreeSky micro modules or nano modules had some weird thing about their output, and they didn't work. So to me, this is cool but more incremental, not really like groundbreaking stuff. Most of it, nice stuff. But if you're running EdgeTX, you should upgrade probably. Yeah. There you go. DC says, man, I cannot wait for EdgeTX to replace Freedom TX on my Mambo. Well, good luck. Keep waiting.
Yeah. Going to be
someday,
another 3 months for that one.
2 weeks.
So, yeah.
For TBS is very busy, and I think their devs are a little overworked right this minute.
I believe they are testing. As far as I know, they are testing that. So yeah, I've seen word about that, and I think Trappy mentioned something about testing through agents. So maybe early OpenTX builds.
Maybe.
Not sure.
Penpengu says, going back to HDZero, I just think it's really weird that Red Cat bragged about SharkBite at their last earnings call. It's almost as if the things said in earnings calls don't necessarily reflect the reality on the ground and are simply designed to convince investors that your company is healthy while still technically being true enough to not trigger an FCC investigation. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair.
Seems about right.
Yeah, so yeah, pretty much. So.
Oh, anyway. Gonna get a phone call about that comment. Betaflight 4.3 RC6 is also released. Yay! Is it?
Yeah.
2 questions. Is this it? Is this the last one? And then number 2, is all the bullshit with the fail-safes and GPS rescue not working? Is that fixed?
Supposedly, yes. It's been tested quite a lot, but it has been changed quite a lot as well. So, yeah, just be prepared to any release candidate, as we've said before, and I'll say every single time I talk about it, any release candidate has a chance to drop you right out of the sky.
Yeah.
So be aware of that. But currently, all the testing shows that it does work. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, they didn't think RC5 was going to have a flyaway bug, but they did. So hopefully they're right about RC6. They do seem like this time it seems like they think it really might be the one.
We'll see.
Okay.
But it definitely does. So.
Okay. I'm going to tweak your volume levels slightly. It's so hard to get the volume levels right. I'm sorry. I'm going to tweak Blunty's volume. I hear people saying Blunt. Mad Max said Wesley was 6 dB. Was it Mad Max? No, Grim FPV said Blunty's audio was 6 dB too low. And that's such a specific number that it makes me think he knows what he's talking about. So I'm going to turn you up slightly.
Don't say that, because then people will start giving you dB numbers every time.
No, I won't do it again.
Okay.
I'll only let him get away with that once. It's incredibly hard to balance audio just by listening to yourself, especially when it's your own audio.
Yeah.
All right.
All
anyway,
right.
We got a big
Moving
one.
on.
We found something that no one knows about.
I think, very few people know about this other than people, who we saw, who we showed. So, PyroDrone has released a new house brand. It's called Pyroflex. They've on their website, they're also selling TPU Pyroflex filament, but they've got a website, pyroflex.io. And Pyroflex is the new venture from PyroDrone into the 3D printing world. And so we reached out to PyroDrone. I reached out to PyroDrone to find out what was going on with that, because we were like, hey, we found this website and there's printers here and this is coming soon. So what exactly is happening? And so, yeah, they basically reached out to us or reached back out and said,
no one can read what they said because this is such a wide screenshot.
Basically, we've been developing Pyroflex to become its own standalone brand. Ryan, Serge's son, will be the owner and runner of Pyroflex, and they'll be working to. They have several dealers and wholesale buyers, and they're going to be working to build a 3D printing brand around that Pyroflex name. So
yeah, DC says in the chat, what's to say they're not just branding some white label filament? Well, I mean, I think we assume that's what they're doing.
I think most filaments are white label, yeah.
Yeah. But what's interesting about this is when we first saw this, it was in the new product roundup, and we found it on Pyro's new products page. And we're like, Pyroflex filament. What are you doing, PyroDrone? But then we actually asked them for a statement, and they answered and said, well, actually, we're branching out into 3D printing. And so, like, if it is, in fact, just like a white label, then I don't know what value there is there. Like, if all I'm doing is I'm buying an Ender 3, but it's labeled the Pyro 3, there's no value there. But if they are, there's a lot of room for value add services in 3D printing. If they are able to support their users and support the printers in a meaningful way, then sure, sell me an Ender 3 with a PyroDrone label on it for $350 instead of $200, and then answer the phone when it's not printing right and make it work for me, and I will consider that money well spent. So it really remains to be seen what they're going to provide. But I think there's potential here.
Yeah, I think so. We'll definitely have to see what they do, but I think it's interesting that they've decided to branch out and not just like, I don't know, if they were just white labeling filament, then they wouldn't have a printer page. And I don't know, I'm interested to know, like, yeah, how deep they go into this and what it'll actually mean. So
800 grams for $30 says long dollar bill. Nah, I'm good.
Yeah, one of the problems they're going to come up against is just competing with Amazon, where you can go buy, SaintSmart TPU or whatever TPU you would usually use for similar or better prices, and have it shipped with Prime for free to your front door. So
correct.
Yeah,
correct. Yep. Anyway, we'll be keeping an eye on that, and we'll let you know as it develops. But
yeah.
Next up, Blunty. Remember that video of the Ferdinand Wolf's fly-through of the Tesla Gigafactory?
Yeah, we got that. We caught that awesome video fly-through of the Berlin Gigafactory. And yeah, we got that there for you in case you missed it. Pretty crazy fly-through, lots of cool shots.
Really crazy.
Bunch of different drones were used and stuff. But a lot of people asked questions about, how they were allowed to do it and what drones they used and who did it and all that kind of stuff. So today we've got an interview from CineD, and they interviewed Ferdinand Wolf, who was the pilot on this, and he explains a lot of stuff about how they got these shots and how they were allowed in there and what kind of drones they used and all that cool stuff. So if you were interested in the details, there's some cool details in a 30-minute interview for you.
Nice. Well worth a look. Ferdinand's a pretty cool guy and a great pilot. And this video, I'm telling you, if you missed this video somehow, it's in the show notes down below. 1000% worth a watch. It is even if you're like, whatever, I've seen CineWup videos before. This is really the production on this, and just the shots he got are incredible.
Very unique.
Yeah. We got another really, really good video coming up on the news. Not yet, but coming up.
Yeah.
So.
Well, speaking of other cinematic shots and talking to people who do them, Johnny FPV, Johnny Schaer, has given some insight into Formula One filming with FPV. YM Cinema Magazine did an article about shooting Formula One with different cameras, FPV drones, and what they're calling the Ukraine on a car. And they talk about how all those things are integrated and which shots are best for what, and how they integrate FPV and why it's necessary, all those kind of cool things. So
I'm going to guess... Sorry, Blunty, I cut you off.
Go ahead.
I'm going to guess this SUV doesn't keep up with this car on the straights.
Yeah.
For that, I interrupted you.
In most cases, that is correct. Yeah. That arm they call the Ukraine, because it's made in Ukraine.
Oh, nice.
Tops out.
Probably shouldn't call it a Russian arm. Not today.
Yeah, that's why they renamed it to the Ukraine. So it tops out at 110 miles an hour, so they can get close.
Well, it's pretty fast.
But yeah, the FPV drone definitely helps out. So.
Mm-hmm. It's nice that it's an actual article. I saw one of these at a Free Fly. Free Fly has one of these cars. It was pretty cool. Real technical details here. There's Mr. Johnny getting ready to chase the car.
Yeah.
Oh, there's some actual technical details here.
Right. Yeah, they talk a lot about stuff like, one of the things they said is, if you tried to fly, let's say, with a helicopter and chase a car, you can't get close enough to the ground to get perspective up to the car. And the car appears like flat, doesn't have perspective. So one thing you can do with the drone is you can orbit around a car inches from the ground, and that's just impossible to get in other ways. So
nice.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's nice to see a little bit of technical detail. I was actually a little underwhelmed with Johnny's behind-the-scene clips from the Porsche video. There was a little bit of meat in there, but not a lot. And a lot of it was like, we really had to plan the shots, and we planned them a lot, and planning is important. And I'm like, give me anything, Johnny. Give me anything. Yeah. This has a little bit of technical details. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
And moving on, like you said, we've got another really cool video to show you. The drone cinematic of the week is the Red Bull downhill. A lot of folks sent this in. The Dutch drone gods did this video, and they basically recorded a downhill video from Red Bull. Red Bull does extreme mountain biking downhill, and they wanted to see if they could get a one-shot chasing them downhill through city streets, and it is not an easy shot to get, that's for sure.
No.
In these back alleys and stuff, in this crazy shot.
I've seen this style of downhill mountain bike racing before. It's insane through these like narrow streets, super fast through the city, downstairs. I'm not sure if Red Bull's going to be super aggressive with their copyright, so I'm hesitant to play the actual video, but it's just insane the stuff they do. But the problem these guys ran into was, number one, just chasing the bike down the course is challenging, but they had real problems with video coverage. So the course is long enough that they couldn't possibly fly a single shot. So they put them up on a roof, and you can see here they put a repeater, an analog video repeater on a DJI drone and put it up in the air. And then it would hover. There we go. Here you go. So it's hovering. It's picking up the signal from the drone and repeating to the rooftop as they chase the rider all the way down. Just from a technical perspective, that they pulled this off is really, really impressive.
Yeah, and also the fact that, from what we found out in the video, they basically had 3 takes, is what it sounded like.
2 practice runs, and then the actual run.
2 practice runs, and then a final shot, and they were able to get this done. So I think this is one of those cases where a lot of people were like, oh, why didn't they use DJI? And it seems like it would have been easy if you did X, Y, Z. But if you've only got 3 shots, 3 chances, and you've got to get all your equipment to this rooftop, and you've got to do all these things, and you've got line of sight issues, what they were able to pull off here was really cool. So.
Yeah. And the shot is pretty cool too, honestly. Chasing it down is because I've seen these shots before from this style of race. And it's either a GoPro on a helmet, which doesn't really give you a sense. I mean, you watch it and you're like, wow, this is amazing. But it doesn't really give you a sense of what the bike is doing. Or it's a static shot and the bike goes, meow, and you're like, oh, there he goes. So having the CineD actually chase him down is really just an eye-opening and amazing. It is, I want to say it's one of the best, let's say it's one of the best CineD shots I think I've ever seen. Maybe not the best drone shots because we've got things like Johnny's Porsche video, but one of the best CineD shots I've ever seen.
Yeah, super awesome. So if you haven't seen it, we've got the link down in the comments. Definitely, well, along with all the other links from today's videos. And then, we'll paste that in the chat for you guys if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, well worth looking at. Okie dokie. Next up, we have an event we think you guys would like to know about. The Street League Sim and IRL event. Tell us about this, Blunty.
Yeah, so Street League, we've talked a little bit about. They're basically, DRL style racing. So larger open source frames and such. and they've got spec racing that they do. So they've got a sim race that they do pretty often. And today, this is from today, they have a race at 7 p.m. MST. So that is in just over 2 hours. We got a link to their Discord down in the video description if you'd like to join them and check out that sim race. Or they have one on Monday the May 9th and May the 19th. They do these fairly often. And then they've also got real life racing if you're into Street League. The next Street League race is going to be in Cotati, California. And it'll be the May 13th through the 15th, the Cali clash. So you get more info over on the Discord.
Want to tell people what Street League is for people who don't know?
Yeah, so it's basically open source DRL style quads. So it's like a spec racing. So it's emulating DRL, but in open source. So it's like the 7-inch, large style open source DRL.
Nice. Interesting that they're allowing variable RPM with a throttle limit. We had just talked, this hasn't been published yet, Blunty, but we talked about how in the FPV news how 533 Freedom Spec isn't allowing their higher KV motors, their new Champions motors in Freedom Spec. And some people had asked, why don't we just have the racers do a throttle limit to bring the RPM down? And other people said, well, enforcement is difficult. You could do a tech check, but then people could just change it, and you don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I guess maybe there's a little bit less at stake, or maybe they're just a little more trusting of their pilots. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's some definitely. I mean, Amari, I believe, has won the last couple events. So I just think they're doing a good tech check, and everybody is trying to be, above board with it. So everybody's keeping an eye on what's going on. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very cool. If you're into that, check that out. Next up, we come to the Community Spotlight section, and this Community Spotlight helps solve one of the problems, which is that if you're moving from KISS to Betaflight or Flight 1, race flight, getting your rate curve the same is really difficult. I struggle with this when I go to KISS. Even when I try to get the rate curve as close as possible, it sometimes doesn't feel right. This is, let's see, this is a new rate converter, right, Blunty? There have been some in the past.
Yeah, so there was one, Rotor Pirates was around for a while, but has been broken for at least a year, and was not working correctly. And I know we have asked quite a few times for something like this, and a lot of people have done different things and poked around with it, but MetaMarc in your Discord has made this cool little program here.
Oh.
Where you enter the top rate in whatever you want, and then you click convert, and it'll convert the bottom rate set to your top rate.
Oh, that's good. Because I in the past would just be like, okay, I get this close, and then I gotta get this, and I would just play with it, and it was so frustrating to try to get it to as close as possible. So this one will you just hit convert, and it just does the best it can to get you a perfect, as close to as it can.
Yeah, he basically uses there's some kind of algorithm he developed to do the curve matching, and then match as best as possible. So pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Really cool. I like that a lot. Click there and move the slider, I see. Yeah. And we got Betaflight, Race Flight, Flight 1, KISS, Betaflight actual rates, and quick rates. See, it's basically all of the rates. Nice. I kind of wish this was built into the firmware. Betaflight has the ability to do KISS rates. That's cool. That would be useful, because then you don't have to convert. I kind of wish that the firmware developers would either just, because it's all open source, it's not like the rate curve is a secret. If they would just let you use other people's rates for simplicity.
Yeah,
but a rate converter.
At this point, I think you can put all the other rates into Betaflight pretty much, but there's no conversion inside of Betaflight.
Right. So if I'm flying KISS, does Betaflight have Flight 1 rates? I don't think it does.
I think it does, yeah. As far as I know, it does.
No, you're probably right. A Canyon Racer says rate converters, because multiplication is hard. That's not how any of this works. The actual formula for the rates is pretty different between Betaflight and KISS, for example, and finding a matching rate curve is really tricky.
Yes.
Dominic Clifton says, just do it in the configurator. Keep the flash space for flying. You're not wrong, Dominic.
Yeah, so I just checked. It does have Betaflight, Racelight, KISS, Actual, and Quick Rates, the exact same set that's on our converter here. So
There you go.
if you need to convert between them, you can. If you just need to enter your rates, obviously Betaflight can do that. So.
Yeah. Okay, well, next up, pull request to build this into the configurator. Let's do it. Make it happen.
All right.
Devs. Make it happen, devs. That's what you love to hear, isn't it? Alrighty. Our next, I am really messing up my titles today, Blunty. I'm not on the ball with the titles. Here we go.
I've never, this is the first episode. I've never heard of that happen.
Shut up. I'm so proud of the titles. Sometimes I get them mostly right.
All the links are in the description for the rate converter, for everything we talk about. A bunch of people are asking for links. So it's always in the description of this video. You just hit that description button on YouTube, and then the little drop down, and you get a list of all those links. Rate converter is right there. So.
Yep. The links are in the show notes. It's worth keeping in mind, Blunty, some people are watching like on a smart TV and can't see the video description, but then you can't get at the link either. Well, how were you in the chat?
I was going to say, you're not going to click the link and you're not going to be in the chat. So,
Good point. Yeah. Next up, we have a segment we call It's Barely News, where we shotgun quick style stuff that we think isn't really super newsy, but you still would want to know about it. And we're going to start by talking about the White House. That won't get us in trouble. At all.
There's been a report from the White House, a statement from the White House happened yesterday. They are seeking expanded powers.
As they do, right?
As they do. And as we talked about before, there are a lot of counterterrorism, counter UAV stuff that they want to do, because obviously all the bad people are going to be tracked and all the good people, And we all know the follies with things like this, but we are reporting at least that it is happening, that they are looking to implement new parts of the CIA, other government departments such as DHS, the Justice Department, and other groups may, including state and local governments, may now have rights to do things to drones. Basically, this will also provide new authority to airports, so you don't have to get as much permitting to install drone detection systems, things like that. This is kind of in its barely news, because this is basically a declaration to do this, but we don't actually have laws on the books for this yet. And they're just basically seeking to expand power. So once we get actually full expanded powers and we see how this is going to lay out, maybe we'll explain more to you about where this ends up. But yeah, hopefully this isn't a big concern for us. Hopefully this is more on the commercial counterterrorism side, but anything that has more restrictions on drones and gives more authority to people to regulate drones, because currently only the FAA really can do that, it may have an impact on us. And,
Yeah. Anytime it's tricky because right now, technically, it's not legal to, for example, jam a drone. That's an FCC thing, not an FAA thing. You're not allowed to jam, period. It's not legal. It would technically not be legal to shoot a drone down. You'd be shooting an aircraft down. Obviously, if you have a fighter jet and you could shoot down a plane or a helicopter, then you could also shoot down a drone. I mean, obviously, like the military can do things, but law enforcement and other, like DHS, technically can't do that legally, not without getting special permission. And that's especially true for things like airports, who are essentially just private, businesses, civilian, etc. So the idea that we would be expanding the right for, let's just say, critical infrastructure to take down or actively deny drones is an interesting step that we think you guys should know is sort of tentatively being taken.
Yeah.
My thought, I'm going to tell you my thought when I read this, was that remote ID, like even if Race Day Quads wins on remote ID, well, fine, they're still going to, then they're just be shooting them down. I don't know. It's like, that's just one prong of the thing.
Sure. That is the case. However, I still think, I don't think this removes any space for the exception that is talked about where we could have shielded operations. So I think, to me, that's still like the world where we're going to be the happiest in, and like the one we're possibly going to get is a world where remote ID gets pushed back to review, and then they have a opening for shielded operations and operations under certain like altitudes and in certain areas. So
yeah. That would still be a good thing to have. You're right.
Yeah.
If you're flying near the White House, maybe remote ID isn't really relevant.
Yeah. Well,
speaking of, people are saying in the chat, well, how would you shoot down a drone anyway? Go ahead.
yeah. Well, one of the ways you could do it is with another drone. So they've got a new quadcopter design that's pretty cheap. And basically, the quadcopter sacrifices itself and throws the propellers off to tackle a racing drone or whatever drone they're trying to take out. So, and this is, obviously useful because it can fly to the target and then chase it and then shoot out from it, that sort of thing. So,
I would like to see this work with both of them in the air.
Sure.
I mean, this is an interesting proof of concept because you can see that it just has to tangle up the props. You see it kind of misses. It goes off to the side, but it just gets into the props enough that it takes the drone down.
Right.
I mean, we've played Velocidrone Combat, Blunty, and you know how hard it is to get a line on like a 5-inch racing drone. It's very hard, even momentarily.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure this is more like a DJI drone. That's just like you're pushing in a direction, right? One or the other. You're not really like doing dive bombs and split S's to avoid things. So.
Right. Yeah, interesting. I mean, this is clearly a company trying to sell this. So, I haven't said this before. I've reached out to companies before who make anti-drone technology. And I reached out under the umbrella of Rotor Riot because I thought it would be a better Rotor Riot episode than it would be an episode on my channel. And I said, hey, are you interested in testing your technology against a racing drone? And they said no. So, I mean, I feel like I should make this a standing offer that if you have an anti-drone technology, no matter what it is, if you want to test it against a racing drone, then I will make it happen, and we'll make a YouTube episode about it. But obviously, go ahead.
If it depends on how available they are, but yeah, we did get contacted by somebody who worked for somebody who's selling to the DoD, who sells microwave drone like defeation systems. So there's definitely
who got contacted. Who's we?
We showed it on the news before. Yeah.
Did they contact us and like?
Yeah, we showed it on the news. Yeah. Remember, it's like a big truck. You fold up the back, and then you like launch out the microwaves, and then it knocks all the drones out of the sky.
I know the thing you're talking about.
That person was in our chat while we were on the news.
Oh, I think that one would work because it's just area denial.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see.
No. I mean, it would be cool to see. You want to make a Rotor Ride episode? Let's do it. Yeah, I just had the thought, and that wasn't the one I was thinking of. There was one previously that it was like, they were like, we're the hottest shit in the world. And I was like, let's do it, boys. And they were like, no, thank you. So anybody who thinks they can take a racing drone down, and including the company you're talking about, if they want to get back in touch and make a Rotor Ride episode, I'm sure that Rotor Ride would love to make it happen. So.
Yeah, I don't know how many DoD units the Rotor Ride episode would sell, but it should be fun.
Yeah, right. At a certain point, it's like, well, who are you advertising to? I look at this and I go, this looks like a company who is trying to sell their product, and the problem is that if they fail, then they look bad and they don't sell product. So nobody really wants to take you up on the offer. So we should buy one. We should just buy one and test it. How much is it? How much is this damn thing?
It's a defense item, so it's probably $1 million. Like I'm sure it's some ridiculous amount of money.
You're probably right. That's a Zing motor. Shut up. That's a Zing motor.
Yeah, this is just. Oh yeah.
It can't be $1 million. It probably is $1 million.
I'm sure it's not cheap.
I really want one. I really want to buy one. Okay, anyway, let's move on. It's barely news. We're supposed to be going quickly. Right. Go ahead.
Next up, a drone crash has caused a 52-acre wildfire. This is our reminder to, keep an eye on your drones and don't do dumb stuff with it. And unfortunately, these were 3 University of Colorado researchers who
Oh,
used the
your home
drone
state.
to conduct severe weather studies. It crashed.
Well,
and
they caused some severe weather.
It's very true. It crashed and caused a fire, unfortunately. Yeah. And so, yeah, it is unfortunate.
Well, that's tough because, like, I've thought about this. I'm fortunate enough to live in an area where it is generally not so dry that an exploding LiPo would cause a wildfire. That's not always true in Tennessee, but it is usually true. And I've thought about people who live in dry, grassy areas. So, like, what do? Do you just not fly? Because, like, you can't know that you aren't going to crash, and you can't know that you would get there with a fire extinguisher before a fire got bad. I don't know what the answer is, man.
I mean, it seems like if you're doing something like this, you should have a fire suppression system on the drone. I mean, if you have like a lifter and you're doing like commercial weather work,
Interesting.
I don't know how hard it would be to install something like that on the drone, but it seems like feasible, right? Then you just have it like fail open, so if it doesn't get a signal, it blows the extinguisher, and I don't know, something like that.
That's interesting. I wonder if that exists. A dead man switch fire suppression system for a drone if you're flying somewhere where a fire would be really bad. You could maybe detect smoke or anyway. Yeah. Unfortunately, this did not have that and started a giant fire. So think before you fly, I guess. Last up, we have GitHub, the tool that's used to develop everything we love, more or less. What is this, Blunty? What is this beautiful?
So somebody linked one of these in the ExpressLRS Discord the other day, and I thought it would be cool to make one out of Betaflight. Basically, this is called visualsource.net, and it tracks the history visually of projects. And this is the Betaflight project where you can see TimeCop working on base flight.
Way back when.
And doing some business there. And yeah, it's pretty cool. You get to see
the
history of the project.
Sucks to be you.
You get to see the history. Well, it's TimeCop email now.
Oh, he's still. Whoa! That must be. What is that? Clean flight? What was that? Something fork?
It's kind of fun to like try to dig out and see exactly what happens. And
there's Dominic Clifton. He came by. He's gonna make clean flight. What is this? A single project? This is the Betaflight project.
This is the Betaflight
Dominic Clifton's back. He came back. These ones aren't labeled. What are these? Is each of these like a merge or a pull request?
Like a fork or a pull PR or like a folder architecture or something like that. So I think what they're working in right now is the targets directory. But as you move on, basically you'll see it start to blow up.
Oh yeah. These are different. Oh yeah, interesting. Oh man. STM32 USB driver. Just expanding the code base. Crazy. Oh, man. That was a big one. Let's skip ahead.
It's a lot of fun. You can do this with any GitHub project, too, so you can paste it on in there and see how it's progressed. Yeah, there's the targets in the top right corner. You can see that big old target cluster.
Uh-huh.
So much work, so many different people. Yeah, super cool.
No kidding. Wow. This is what's happened with the Betaflight project.
Yeah, we've linked the Betaflight one, and then we've also linked the ExpressLRS one, which I think is pretty cool too. So,
yeah, nice.
A lot of fun.
Nice.
A lot of Alessandro early there.
Yeah, a lot of Alessandro. All right, that's really cool. And that is going to bring us to the end of the FPV news for today. But never you fear, we will be back next week with more news. If you have any news that you think we need to know about, you can email news@fpvknowitall.com.
As always. And then don't forget, it's on the screen. It's always on the screen. If you forget it, it's always there. And also, what else is on the screen? The like button. So go down there and hit that like button.
Hit the like button. Yeah. Ooh,
we
got to read the super chats. Isaac Mitchell, thanks for a $2 super chat. Mike Wheelies, thanks for a $5 super chat. Best 7-inch bind and fly for carrying a little extra weight. Best 7-inch bind and fly. The two that I know exist are the iFlight Chimera 7-inch and the. Is Gepard still make the Croc 7-inch, the Mr. Croc 7-inch? That was supposed to be pretty good. I don't know. That's
I'm
what
not
I'm
sure I
gonna
like
like.
that frame.
No.
It's like, isn't
I
that that
like-
weird set down one where the front is like kind of hanging under? I'm not sure I'm a big fan of
I
that.
like the Mark IV. You probably couldn't. We're probably not like gonna go wrong with the iFlight Chimera, but to tell you the, there you want to bind and fly. How many bind and fly 7-inches are there really? There's not a ton. People like
Not
the
a ton.
Chimera 7.
The Roma F7, there's one.
That's on Roma F7. Roma is good.
Yep.
Just because the 5-inch is good doesn't mean the 7-inch is good though. But I'd probably bet on the Roma F7. People in the chat like the Chimera. Easy, thanks for a $10 super chat. That is gonna do it. That is gonna do it. Have they talked about anything in the title yet? Koa and Mauritius must be watching the replay because we not only talked about everything, and now we are done. Good night, everybody. See you next week.
Later, guys. Take it easy.